Dean Obadallah. He wants to be your Muslim friend.
Most Muslims, I know many, are great people.
Watch this.
People.
You're listening to the Dean Obadallah Show, where comedy meets politics and all things in between.
And welcome back, Dean Obadallah Show. We're live right here with our friend Raul Reyes in studio, MSNBC. He does everything. He's a lawyer. He goes on to talk about immigration a great deal. He also writes for CNN. I don't know how he's able to do both, but he does. Raul, my friend, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
We were
Busy
just
day.
talking about how the one thing the Trump administration has taught us all about are legal issues no one's talked about. We've all become like first-year law students. We learned about the Emoluments Clause, sentencing memos.
Right of asylum.
What is a criminal conspiracy?
Settlement. Everyone knows these things.
This is
now,
remarkable
right?
what we're learning about what do special counsel powers do, who actually has the power to fire them or not, and recusals. So now we were dumped as part of Mueller mania. No, it's Mueller mania as we're calling it all day.
Mueller Friday.
Oh my God, it's more than that. So there were two big sentencing memos dealing with Michael Cohen, one by the Southern District of New York and one by Robert Mueller's team. What are your top lines? We'll just have a discussion about what are your top lines from these memos? What jumped out at you?
Well, the one from the Southern District of New York made more of an impression on me, only because it seems to so much more in greater depth implicate the president, because it's basically saying now that the Southern District that's the case against Michael Cohen that stems from the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and
other stuff, like
another
taxi
woman.
medallion stuff, right?
Right. So in that one, though, they say that he acted at the direction of individual one, who everyone knows is the president. So that's basically saying, Michael Cohen is saying, and they're very confident in these filings, that he, in effect, directed a criminal conspiracy. And I mean, we've all just become so, I think, inured to the circumstances that we're living in, and sort of we accept all sorts of things in any other administration would be wild bombshells. But that to me is the thing that jumped out, and the fact that the Southern District of New York, they basically want, say, 4 or 5 years for Michael Cohen. They're saying, look, I mean. As I know you have a legal background too, they are saying, like, look, buddy, you are a lawyer. You are held to a higher standard than other people. So they are not being lenient with him. They're saying you should know better as a citizen, and even more so as a lawyer. And they also point out that he did cooperate with them, but say not initially, and they're still not convinced he cooperated as much as he could have.
As much as they wanted, that's for sure.
Right.
There's a sense that they were disappointed with Michael Cohen.
And I think it's unfair to read, say, the sentencing memo from the Southern District and say, oh, they're being so harsh on him or they're being tough on him. Because look, this is not a referendum on what we think about Michael Cohen, if he is a good guy or a bad guy. This is the law. Right. And they are saying you have a lifetime pattern of putting yourself above the law. You've repeatedly you've lied to us. They talk about his conduct over a lifetime, professional and personal, basically trying to lead this sort of double life and tying it back to the Trump organization. This is like, in a sense, like for the president, say the circle is getting tighter.
It's interesting depending how you, like Alan Dershowitz was saying, well, look at the message sent by the Southern District of New York. Even if you help out, we're still going to make you go to jail for 4 years. So the message is don't cooperate. Alan Dershowitz literally going on Fox News trying to tell people who are witnesses, don't cooperate because you're not going to get a great deal. But as Danny Savalas pointed out, as a criminal defense attorney, he still committed crimes. It's not like you
serious
walk
crimes,
right?
They're
and I went through a little bit of from tax evasion to the lying on federal forms to get loans to the campaign finance violation.
And just think about it in broader terms. What he did, I mean, you can argue to a certain degree that influenced our 2016 election. So that is not something I think that you should say, oh, the judge is going to go easier on him or be more lenient because he cooperated with this other investigation. So I don't think it was necessarily tough. I think it was, by the books, by the law.
What you just said, I think, is really important because it's right here in black and white. What I found interesting about the Southern District of New York's memo, it's much longer. It's like 40 pages. The Mueller's team's like 7. It's like 6. The signature page is just one of them. It goes into detail about Donald Trump and Michael Cohen's relationship, talking about when they first met in 2006 over a condo dispute where it was a board of directors issue, and Michael Cohen helped out Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump gave him a job working for him since 2007. And even says his income, he was getting paid $500,000 from Donald Trump. So he is very close. But when it gets to the campaign finance stuff here, it says that in great detail in the sentencing memo that about the two different payments, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, doesn't use their names, but says Stormy Daniels. It has Stormy, the adult film star here, and says that the goals of these were that to protect the campaign. And as a result of Cohen's actions, neither woman spoke to the press prior to the election. So it was like mission accomplished. Trump did not,
was successful.
Michael
It
Cohen
was
and Donald Trump
successful,
did not
right.
want these women to speak in the closing days of the campaign to hurt his campaign. They paid them off, and he succeeded. This is every element of a federal campaign law violation. It was knowing, intentional, violating our campaign finance laws to influence the election.
And a criminal
and it
conspiracy.
Happened. Right.
And this is a much more direct implication of Trump. So, I mean, everyone knows who individual one is, and just, I think it was also by design that their sentencing memo laid all of these things out that these are not disputed facts. These are known, and they expand the timeline. You know, I think they did a very straightforward job. Actually, I think if you're a layperson, if you go anywhere, you go to the New York Times, any place, you can find these documents. I think to a certain extent, anyone can understand it because they just lay out what they say was his conduct and how improper it was at every level, legal, as a citizen, you know, as an attorney, as a supposedly erstwhile, representative of the court, and I think they do a good job of laying it out.
And also, don't forget that to remind people, David Pecker, and yes, that is his real name, from the National Enquirer, already had said he was going to work with the government. And so when the government writes here in this part, in particular, and as Cohen himself has now admitted, with respect to both payments regarding the women, he acted in coordination with and at the direction of individual number one, who's Trump. So in particular, if you drop that other clause out, with respect to both payments, they were at the coordination of Donald Trump. All they're saying is Cohen has further corroborated that story, but they have evidence on their own because the prosecutors would not be putting this in writing, giving it to a federal judge if it was just on Michael Cohen's words.
Right.
So they have a lot of evidence. And Michael, there's no doubt that Donald Trump, if not president, but for being president, he is charged as a co-conspirator in violating campaign violations. There's no doubt about that. Right. So that's the only thing he's got going for him. The other thing I thought was interesting is that in the sentencing memo of Southern District of New York, they go through how the Trump organization was involved in ultimately some kind of fraud. They don't charge him with anything, but they say that at the instruction of an executive for the company, and the company's Trump organization, Cohen sent monthly invoices to the company for these $35,000 payments, falsely indicating that the invoices were being sent pursuant to a retainer agreement. The company then falsely accounted for these payments as legal expenses. That's tax fraud right there. That's income tax. That's tax evasion. The Trump organization. If Donald Trump is involved in any of that, that's another count right there against him.
Right. So I think, I mean, of course, we're going to see rage tweeting or some type of, bizarre response from the president. But I think these two memos are something that even for someone like Trump, who doesn't concern himself with the laws, because to a certain extent he feels that maybe they don't apply to him. This is serious. This is very serious business. It
is. And Trump this morning, through last night, through today, rage tweeted so much about Mueller in ways I had not seen for a while. And everyone was, of course, we were now tweeting before this came out. We know he knows something is up. Either Matthew Whitaker, the hot tub salesman who works as Attorney General now. Did you see the video when he was selling
Well, I guess
jacuzzis?
You could put it that way, right?
Like he was defending these horrible jacuzzis or hot tub. Whatever. I'm not even kidding, folks. It's real. Even Rachel brought it up last night. I think we should just call him the hot tub salesman who happens to be Attorney General right now.
But you know what the good thing about that is? You can find the silver lining in that. You have a legal background. I think all your viewers know that, right?
Yeah.
If people like you and me ever looked at the people who are, say, running the Justice Department or in the Supreme Court, and we ever thought like, oh, no matter how smart we are, we could never do that. I mean,
I've been on cable news.
There you go.
And if we have time, we will talk about that insanity where Donald Trump has appointed someone whose real qualifications are co-presenter on Fox and Friends, not even a co-host, who is now going to be our UN ambassador, which is a cabinet level position. All right, let's not talk about that. Let's get
sentencing memo. So the other one,
the Mueller one,
the Mueller one.
And again, folks, there are two distinct ones: one from the Southern District of New York, and one from Mueller, because Michael Cohen pled guilty, as we learned last week, to lying to Congress. That was the Mueller team dealt with that. Southern District of New York dealt with the other 3 counts, tax evasion and the campaign finance laws.
I believe it's actually 4 counts.
It's 4 counts altogether,
yes, 4.
3 with Southern District and 1 with Mueller. And December 12th, one judge will sentence Cohen on all. So these memos are going to, there's one judge making their case for why the penalty should be what it is. I'm sorry, so go ahead.
Right. No, so with the Mueller with the Mueller memo, it's just fascinating to me. I guess my take on it is just that there is so much that we don't know. People have spent hundreds of hours trying to dissect it, and there are great legal minds and former prosecutors and all sorts of people analyzing it, but we know just the tip of the iceberg. And I mean, again, that is something that should make anyone with 2 brain cells affiliated with this administration very, very nervous, because they're very certain of what they're doing. And you remember that when this goes to the judge next week, he's going to take both these things into account. I would be shocked if the judge, no matter, how much Michael Cohen did cooperate with the special counsel, I would be very surprised if this judge decided to give him, I think he's looking at closer to the 4 or 5 years rather than no jail time.
Right.
Because these crimes, this type of...
They're serious.
It's just too serious.
And as Danny Zavalis was saying, who is a practicing criminal defense attorney, that he was taken by a Southern District, was not asking for even the minimum in a way. They're okay if they go a little below the guidance, but they want substantial jail time.
But for them, substantial jail time. And this, to me, not to go on a tangent, speaks to the inherent inequality built into our criminal justice system. Substantial jail time for him would be 4 to 5 years,
Sure.
right? Meanwhile, that woman in Texas who, by mistake, voted illegally, I think she was sentenced to 8 years. And there are people, as we all know, doing time for weed and things like that. So even what is considered substantial time for a white-collar criminal type of case, that to me, it still reminds me of the inequality that is built in our system.
And it was their term, by the way, folks, Southern District of New York, their term they wrote was they want a substantial prison term. It's required to vindicate the purposes and principles of sentencing, which, of course, are the same of our criminal justice system, is punishment and deterrence. Right. That you have to have both. You punish someone for wrongdoing, but you send a message to everybody else that if you do something wrong, you're going to go to jail,
right,
and we're going to fine you, and your life is going to be changed forever. And if you don't do that, then our criminal justice system means nothing. I think Trump today tweeted about the criminal justice reform bill should be passed. And I think that's just for him and his family at this point. It's like, maybe I can get out of jail early. So let's go. Now, you said something else too. I think is so important, because I had a Trump supporter call before and say about Donald Trump, and you can't prove he conspired with a Russian jet. Every day we're learning something new. This is a Russian criminal nesting doll with Trump. Like you take it out. What we learned from this sentencing memo that I didn't know about. One, we knew that Michael Cohen, we know specifically now from Mueller's team, not Southern District, where we've moved on to the Mueller memo here, that he worked with the Mueller team. He gave them credible information. They said defendant's assistance has been useful in 4 significant respects. One, how long the negotiations were going on for the Russian tower, going through June, not January, as Trump lied. But this was very interesting. Also provided information about attempts by, I don't think this is just one person. That's what I'm getting at here when we're saying there's more out there. It says, quote, the defendant also provided information about attempts by other Russian nationals to reach the campaign. For example, and we'll just stop there for a second. If you write like that and you're a lawyer and you know every word matters, you're not going to give the only, this is for example, because there are other instances out there of Russian nationals reaching out to the Trump team, and how they responded, we do not know. I can't guess, but I can tell you this is wordsmithing. This is what prosecutors do. So the defendant also provided information about attempts by other Russian nationals to reach the campaign. For example, this one I didn't know about. In or around November 2015, Cohen received the contact information for and spoke with a Russian national who claimed to be, quote, a trusted person in the Russian Federation who could offer the campaign political synergy and synergy on government level. Cohen calls the guy back and talks to him. There's no doubt that he talked to Trump first. Is there any doubt in your mind he spoke to Trump first?
And I believe this was the instance where they mentioned that nothing came of this specific attempt at contact. However, that does not absolve them of liability. When you have a foreign government, representatives of a foreign government reaching out in that way, you are required to disclose it and follow up on it. It doesn't matter whether or not something actually happened. The other thing that I made a note of looking at the Mueller memo was that they talked about how Michael Cohen had given them information about the testimony he had given to Congress, how he had circulated. They used the word circulated. And that could mean, like, did Trump approve it? Did other people in the inner White House circle take a read of it, maybe give him some guidance? And that potentially exposes some more people in the administration to some type of liability. And those people, I'm sure they know who they are. Some of them may have already spoken with the special counsel. But again, it's drawing more people into that circle. What I think is interesting in terms of where we are at this point, it's so strange because, I mean, you can turn on, say, Fox News or Sinclair and see various defenses, attempted defenses from the president. But here's the thing. Number one, I mean, you could be a complete layman and I mean, anyone, a reasonable person would say, Trump is acting guilty. He's not acting, like a completely innocent person. Number two, their own primary line of defense seems to be what about Hillary? What about Obama? What about someone else who did this? They have no credible explanation for all these otherwise bizarre circumstances and unlikely coincidences. And then the third thing that is sort of frightening to me, just as a citizen, is that when Trump gets backed into this type of corner, when he feels himself being threatened, that's when he lashes out, often personally. So he's been doing that at Twitter. Right. But second of all, I mean, this is typically when he does something as a point of distraction, say, going after people on the southern border, having some type of huge immigration crackdown, sending troops to the border, anything that would be so outrageous and out there, even in terms of international relations,
rounding up Muslims. There's nothing. I mean,
that it would cause some type of distraction, and that's very worrisome. I think just for us as a country that we have a president who is so driven by his own personal interests with this wide streak of irrationality that he will do literally whatever it takes to divert attention. That is a frightening thing.
People have asked me often, like, what do you think Trump will do next? And I go, here's the problem. I can't tell you because I'm not a psychopath. Like, we need a political version of Hannibal Lecter that you can talk to and say, what will Trump do next? And they'd be like, he's going to eat Nancy Pelosi's liver. Like, wow, I didn't see that coming, but I should have, because that's plausible. Right. Like, he bit Nancy Pelosi. Like, oh my God. Like, anything. There's something else too here. And this is like little things. Like, first of all, to be clear, we are learning more and more every day. Mueller has everything. As I made the point earlier, Trump speaks through tweets, Mueller speaks through pleadings. And in this pleading, you had this new meeting we didn't know about. So you have more connections. So we're finding out now about a connection between Trump and Russian nationals. November 2015. That is early in the campaign, folks. Trump was not even leading in the polls till about December of 2015. It was right on the edge of him. It was him and Ben Carson. Because I wrote about this in past things because it was the few weeks later when he calls for the ban on Muslims, total complete shutdown of Muslims, and he really skyrockets and solidly stays at number one. There's by the special counsel also corrected other false and misleading statements he had made concerning outreach to and contacts with Russian officials. For example, it says here in a radio interview in September 2015, Cohen claimed his comment was just spontaneous and had not been discussed within the campaign. Well, now, special counsel, during the proffer session, that's when they have their meetings, he corrected it, and Cohen admitted that this account was false and that he, in fact, conferred with individual one, Trump, about contacting the Russian government before reaching. Just said, "Oh, we should speak to the Russians. It was just my idea." And now,
especially worried about is number one is that these sentencing memos, and bit by bit as we learn more about these investigations, is how we are learning about how Trump's personal interests and the national interests are they have never been separated. Although, it seems like eons ago that he promised his business would be separate and everything would be hands off. We see now how even during his campaign, everything was so commingled or intertwined that there was this was going on and likely is still going on. And the other thing is that no one who I have spoken to, when I meet people who are national security experts or people who were in the government, and I ask them, how far along do you think this investigation is? And pretty much everyone I have spoken with says it still seems to be in the investigatory phase, that he still, as much as Robert Mueller knows, he is still gathering this piece and putting this piece and corroborating this, that he, in the long run, I believe a conscientious approach is the best, but it just shows that there's so much, it's just the tip of the iceberg, as shocking as all of this is.
You want to hear, here's a crazy theory, and we'll take a break and come back. And we'll try to take some calls, too. If people want to call and talk about this with our friend Raul Reyes, some people are on hold. I'll have Matt check if you're still there, and if you want to talk about this issue. You wonder, is Mueller waiting for Trump to maybe lose in 2020? So then, because he can then indict him. And you can indict. Don't forget, statute of limitations is not going to run on this for years and years and years.
It's a long time.
It is. Well, 2 years goes faster than we all know. But look,
the last 2 years have been long.
They've been the longest. But I think now, and I would be stunned if anything else happens but this, that Mueller recommends some articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. How many, I'm not sure, but and we can go through them after the break. And then the Democratic House moves, and if they have the evidence, and I think they will, there will be an impeachment of Donald Trump. He will be the third president impeached, but then it goes to the Senate. We've never had a president removed because the bar is so high. You need 2/3 of the Senate. And you would need such grave evidence, the type where Richard Nixon's own Republican senators came to him and go, you got to get out because we're going to vote, because no president wants to be the first removed. That's a horrible thing. So let's take a break, come back, and chat more with our friend Raul Reyes. Want to give us a call, 866-997-4748, and join the conversation about these sentencing memos and where we're going. Well, all ears. Be right back after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Whoever's the next president, we should call him the 45th president of the United States. And this will go down as a dark time in America that we'll never refer to again.
SiriusXM Progress.
The biggest stories of the day. Right now. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show.
Sentencing memos from Robert Mueller in the last 90 minutes. Two dealing with Michael Cohen. One from Southern District of New York. One from Robert Mueller's team with Michael Cohen. And then one Mueller team dealing with Paul Manafort's new lies. And, we were just talking, Raul and I, about two quick things. One is, first of all, the entire Watergate report has still not been released to the public. Parts of it have, but not all of it, which shows you that this Mueller report can be drafted, given to DOJ, and we may never see all of it, ever. I mean, it's still the Nixon thing, but enough of it gets to, and I imagine members of Congress can probably see all of it. I mean, it's our taxpayer dollars that went to fund it. Some of it might be privileged. Some might be top secret because they were dealing with Russia and stuff like that, but they'll be able to see it and move on it. But the question that Raul said is he wonders if Robert Mueller, like Ken Starr did, would actually recommend articles of impeachment, or, as they did with Watergate with Nixon, give a roadmap to impeachment without actually drafting and saying, here's Article 1, 2, 3, and 4. You actually think Mueller is going to be more like the Watergate prosecutors, less political?
I think only because they don't exist. You know, he obviously doesn't live in a bubble. He knows how partisan this has become. Unlike the Nixon era, like there was no equivalent of Fox News during Watergate that was constantly promoting a pro-Nixon agenda. It's a very different media. I mean, obviously, no internet, no digital age back then. So I think he's more aware of the scrutiny he's going to come under, and the need to play absolutely, to be as middle of the road, by the books as possible. Although there is no real roadmap for alleged crimes and improper behavior at this level. I mean, even for presidential behavior at this level, where you have the president lashing out at anyone who he feels threatened by, starting with Robert Mueller, including former officials of his own administration. It's just so, and even, has become so crazy right now.
And even Nixon didn't have an allegation that he committed fraud to win the White House.
Right.
It was abuse of power once in. Look, one of the big things, and I'm glad you raised it, Raul, because I was not focusing on as much, but that in this pleading, the U.S. attorneys in Southern District make it very clear that it's not just Michael Cohen. They have evidence besides that to support the conclusion that Donald Trump directed the violation of campaign finance laws. They did that in, one of them was October 26th, the payment, weeks before the election. There's no way not to argue that had an impact on the election. We can't quantify. I can't tell you if the 77,000 voters in 3 key states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, would have been moved if they heard Donald Trump is paying a porn star. And that's what the headline would be. I don't mean to be dismissive of Stormy Daniels, but I'm saying that would be the headline. Republican candidate paid porn star to hush her up about affair. How does that play? In the ones who want Christian Sharia law, they don't care. The ones who you think would care the most, they want a guy who's going to pick Kavanaughs and Gorsuches. But what are the middle of the road people are like, this is ridiculous. This guy's a criminal. We can't have him. And that could have swayed the election.
And those payments, I believe, were finalized sort of in the last few months. What if if that had come out much sooner?
Well, the last was Stormy was October 26th, and this pleading literally 2 weeks before the election.
Right. So what if that had all come out sooner, and these women had a longer opportunity to go public, or to tell their stories, or to reveal some of the things that
locker room talk
Stormy Daniels has revealed since then about, intimate encounters with Donald Trump. We can't quantify the type of effect that would have had on especially independent voters, So
it's hard to say. And by the way, I was looking in the break too. I grabbed the Ken Starr report, and in that report, the exact words Ken Starr, after detailing everything about Bill Clinton, concluded there is substantial and credible information that President Clinton committed acts that may constitute grounds for an impeachment. And then he went through all of them, lying and all this other stuff. So you had Ken Starr using this term of art, substantial and credible information. That's not in the Constitution. You don't need that. But Ken Starr sort of established a burden of proof here and went through it all in his roadmap. All right, let's take a call or two. Here is Bob from California. Bob, how are you?
Yeah, hey, I was just wishing there was a comedian on the Mueller team that could have just left one page all redacted, but right in the middle left the word collusion. Wouldn't that have been just
Or how about the redacted words, but it was like just the word Trump, and then in the middle conspired, at the bottom Russia, and it said, and then just like there's 3 words in the page, Trump conspired Russia. I'm like, what is that? And in between it's all redacted, so you have no idea what it means. But I think that would be great. I agree. I love that, Bob. Great idea.
I wish they had a sense of humor over there, but it's like, holy crap. Yeah. I've really enjoyed this myself,
Bob has a healthy attitude.
Is Schadenfreude? Is that what it's called, right? When you enjoy the suffering of others?
No, mostly because I'm old, and when all this crap hits the fan, I'll probably be dead. But
no, I think it's going to happen soon, Bob. So I hope you're going to stay with us. We need you. I need the listeners first of all. So selfishly, I need you. But
all right, man.
And listen, Bob. Here's a reason. No matter what your age is. In fact, I was telling this to one of my older relatives. Here's a reason to want to live as long and full life as possible. You want to be here after this administration. You just want to be on this earth. You want to be here for whatever we learn after this is all over and whatever comes next.
When President Pence imposes Christian Sharia law, we all want to be here for the Bible becoming the basis of American law. Oh my God!
Hey, I don't think Pence is in the clear here, guys. I don't think Pence is in the clear. I think Chuck Lee Sada is up to his ass in this.
I had Seth Abramson on last night, who wrote the book Proof of Collusion, who's lived this stuff for 2 years. And I asked him point blank, Pence? And he goes, I cannot find anything. So I'm not sure. I'm not giving him dispensation saying no, but I haven't seen the evidence either. And you need criminal evidence, not just furthering a lie on TV. You can lie on TV all day. It's not a crime. It's a lie when you're doing it to the government officials or you're doing it to cover up something. So it's different. All right, Bob. Thank you, my friend.
Have a good one.
You too. So, all right, we got to take one more. We have 2 breaks left. So let's take a quick break. Come back, chat more with Raul Reyes. Try to take some calls as well. 866-997-4748. What do you make of all this stuff here, my friends? Mueller mania, a lot of sentencing memos. And we've all learned what a sentencing memo means. Is this remarkable? Thanks, Donald Trump. Be right back after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Voting is the most important civil right of our era because the right to vote preserves all other rights. It's not the Second Amendment. It's not guns. It's voting.
Sirius XM Progress.
New perspectives, important voices, influential ideas. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. Welcome to the surreal world. I'm here with Raul Reyes, and me and Raul were laughing because Trump tweeted about these sentencing memos. This is his entire tweet, folks. Here it comes. I'm not kidding. Quote, totally clears the president. Thank you, exclamation point. I don't even know what bizarro world. It actually says that you were involved in campaign finance violations, and also says that you were talking to the Russians now in November 2015. We never knew about that, and you had conferred with Cohen before that conversation happened. How? I know it doesn't clear anyone. I just think it's laughable, but he doesn't care. Oh, my God.
You know what? It's laughable, but honestly, it's also tragic because there's a whole segment of our citizenry that they look at his tweets, and that's about all they will check in with his investigation, and then they will check in with Fox News or Sinclair Broadcasting, and they'll be talking about Hillary's emails and calling Michael Cohen a liar. So, I mean, we've reached a level where, to me, it's like comedic and also tragic because, I mean, this is the commander-in-chief. This is the man who directs our military. This is the person who's running this country. And I mean, it's really staggering that he just throws out these, I told you earlier, these tweets that if you didn't know who it was, you would think it was a truly disturbed person sometimes, with the exclamation points,
You're absolutely right.
the bullying, the name-calling, and some of the worst name-calling is directed at people from his administration who he kicked out.
Well, we were going to talk about Rex Tillerson. We couldn't even talk about this other. I'm like, it's Friday. We could have a little fun. But I knew in the back of my mind these were coming. But, you know, earlier in the week, the memo came like 8:30 at night because you can file any time today.
Right.
And they could file early after the show. So I'm
right.
like, I was just planning like a lighter show. I sent you these topics. And I'm like, if this breaks, we'll touch on this. Now it's the whole hour. Let's take a quick call here from Dave from Washington. Dave, how are you, my friend?
Hey, good, Dean. Hey, I was in a debate with some Trump supporters just the other day. It's
I'm
like
sorry.
5 of them. Yeah, I know. It was pretty brutal. But the thing is they I started gaining some ground with them on the Russia connection with Trump because a couple of them were military veterans like myself, and they do understand that Russia and China have opposing goals to the United States, and they know that can be very dangerous. All right, just as a matter of course. And I was gaining some ground there, but I'm telling you, here's what I'm worried about. If there is nothing revealed that shows Russia and Trump directly colluded or conspired in order to get, like, I don't know, U.S. forces out of the Middle East, or the U.S. to stop helping the Ukraine, or something like that. If there's not something very specific, it's just, Russia helped Trump because they like him. They helped Trump because they believe in the Make America Great Again agenda. If it's something like that, I'm afraid that this is going to be bad. But
one thing,
even though those are serious crimes,
but even if you can't get if you can't get the Russia thing, they have him on co-conspirator to violate 2 federal election campaign laws, which only up to 5 years in prison, but you could be impeached for that. Any other president would be. They would be starting impeachment proceedings, except they're waiting for Mueller. In fact, former acting Solicitor General Neil, I don't know if it's Katyal. He's on all the time. The former acting general said today that the big news in all of this is that you have, for the first time, federal prosecutors essentially saying that Donald Trump committed a felony.
Yeah.
Because it's not Michael. The only thing we had before is Michael Cohen in August saying that on the record. You didn't have prosecutors saying that on the record. Now you have prosecutors in writing saying that Michael Cohen helped with that story, but they have proof of that on their own. That's the way this is written. Again, these are wordsmiths. When prosecutors are writing these documents, it's not like, I'm just writing an article for fun and just a comma or something like that. This is very clear. They have more evidence that Donald Trump that can back this up, that he corroborates that he violated federal election campaign finance laws.
But I think Dave makes a very good point that, look, we're talking about the sentencing memos and getting into different laws, and there will be as this progresses, examinations of statutes and all these types of things. But I think Dave makes a very good point that for a lot of America that does not live on social media or is not glued to cable news, there's a certain, I fear, as he does, there's a certain part of the country that unless you have absolute direct connection between Russia and the president, that helps swing the election. Unless all those things line up, people just won't accept it. And the reason I say that is because you have such strong pushback from conservative media defending the president, constantly denigrating Mueller and continually moving the goalposts. First, it was a ridiculous story. Then there was no collusion. Then it was he could have done it. It was legal. Even if it happened, it was still legal.
Right.
I mean, the goalposts have continually moved, and part of of the country is swayed by that. So I think he makes a good point. There are some people,
right,
unless it's black and white with
but
a
you can't
siren on it, they won't.
That's life.
Acknowledge it.
Not everyone thought Nixon was guilty of crimes either, but objectively speaking, he was. You just need a jury, or you need a jury of senators. You need public opinion to sway elected officials. That's true. And what Trump is doing is playing a political game by today tweeting, "What about Hillary stuff?" That does not work in a criminal justice system. You cannot, as I said earlier, if a cop pulls you over for going 65 miles an hour, someone drives by at 75 miles an hour, you're not getting a ticket by going, "Look at him, he's going faster than me." Well, here's your ticket. I'll go after that person later. That's life. So you can bring up Hillary all you want, Trump supporters. It means nothing for Trump.
Or Obama.
What about Obama? What about Hillary? Right. And they'll bring up like, Obama lied, you can keep your doctor. They always bring that up. I'm like, that's nothing compared to what that was one thing about a healthcare plan. We're talking about crimes against the United States of America, crimes. And yes, you're not going to sway some of them. I don't think we can be that fixated on swaying them. I don't care anymore if we sway them. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I actually that's a commendable attitude, because that is the type of attitude that a judge will have. A judge isn't worried about how this is going to go over with the public, or what lawyers will think of him, or people in his legal community will think of him. He looks at the law, he looks at the cases, and then he apply the facts of the case, and then he applies it. I mean, there are decisions in the Supreme Court and even in the lower courts that are wildly unpopular, or people were in outrage about, but a true judge is impartial, doesn't care. So hopefully we could get to that point.
And a jury, you hope we get an impartial jury in this hyper-partisan world, but they got one in the Manafort trial. I mean, there was one person who was a Trump supporter, apparently, who prevented that conviction of Manafort on the other, I think, 10 other counts. Right. So, Dave, I know you can't sway them. I wonder if the average American will be swayed when there's more evidence brought forward that Donald Trump directed the violations of the federal election campaign laws on the eve of the election, literally October 28th. And that's according to the filings. That's not me bringing up dates. In the filings, October 26th, right here, that Cohen emailed and incorporating services to obtain the company. And then that afternoon directed $131,000 to be deposited into an account he just opened. And the next day he wired that money to Stormy Daniels' lawyer. So October 26th, 27th, November 2016, we're talking, 10 days from Election Day or 2 weeks from Election Day. No one can tell you how many people were affected by this, but I have to be honest, a headline, Donald Trump pays hush money to porn star. Some of his base would have been like, that was 10 years ago, I don't care. But some people would have been moved. Right. And this election was too close from an electoral college point of view not to say this swung the election. Dave, what do you think?
Well, no, I agree with you, Dean. Everything you say is accurate and spot on from the legal perspective, okay? But I'm talking about the emotional perspective. And you mentioned this on a previous show. You were speculating would Trump supporters go to the streets. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I was like, I don't think so. I think, this is just overly dramatic. No, I've changed my opinion. I think they would, because when I brought up the campaign finance laws violations probably do rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, I thought they were all going to attack me. There was even one liberal guy in there that mentioned the first thing out of his mouth was the Clinton Foundation corruption. And it's not fair, because the Clinton Foundation corruption is equivalent to working with a foreign government to win an election. I said, no way, it's not. There's no way that's no way that's comparable. And I mean, I thought I was going to be attacked. That point?
Sometimes you have to throw a glass.
No, I thought they were going to attack me. Seriously, though.
Here's the thing. I had on J.M. Berger last Friday, who is an extremism expert. He's written about ISIS, countless books, like The State of ISIS, a book that he co-wrote, which became a huge hit and stuff like that. His new book was on white supremacy. And I asked him about Trump and Trump supporters. And I said, look, I know we're speculating, but if Donald Trump, and the connection he has with his base, called for violence, would it happen? And he said, I can tell you as an expert in this field, some percentage of his base would go to violence. And that story got picked up by a bunch of news outlets because he's not partisan.
Right.
He was saying, I view Donald Trump close to an extremism
like a personality
leader,
cult in some ways.
A demagogue, where it's not like a terrorist leader. It's not like an ISIS leader. He's not ridiculous, but like an extremism leader who if he went that next step and called for violence and said, they're trying to get me out of the White House, come help me, take to the streets and show them that you support your president, some of them would do that. I don't know what they would do. They might just get to the streets and protest civilly, and that's completely fine. They could block traffic and feel good. They bemoan Democrats, liberals for doing that. They can do that. But the violent
Or they
part,
could send packages, these suspicious packages around to all the media outlets.
CNN last night, they did during a live show.
Like we've seen already. So that's very scary.
Dave, we're in scary times, my friend.
Yeah, we are. I think they would probably try to seize an armory. I think they would probably try to seize a National Guard armory or something. I'm not even kidding about that. And I think it would be really go to another level. But anyways, hopefully I'm wrong.
On that note, Dave's like, I could be wrong. I'm leaving the country. All right, Dave. Nice talking to you. Yep. That's what Dave gets at, though, in a way, is why I had on Lawrence Tribe from Harvard was on, because he had a book out. And he said something that I agree with. I would so prefer that we defeat Trump politically and he lose in 2020 and then is prosecuted later for any crime.
Just to settle it.
And then as opposed to it stopping here. But I'm not saying in any way defer prosecution or defer indictment or impeachment. If the evidence, the report comes in a timely fashion and Democrats move on it, they should move on it. There's no doubt. But I'm just saying in the perfect world, it would be so much better like to win big. Like we win like 38, 39 states vote for the Democrat and crush Trump.
Right. And I get where he's coming from. And I mean, I idolize Lawrence Tribe. I mean, if you've anyone who's read stuff he's written, he is the greatest. However, I mean, to me, that type of viewpoint is idealistic in a way, because no matter how, if Trump were to lose in his second, if he sees it through to the end of this term and is defeated, no matter by what type of margin, he will denounce it as rigged. He will say that China interfered. He will say that some guy weighing 400 pounds on his bed hacked into the systems. I mean, this president has done great damage to the integrity of many of our systems, electoral, judicial, criminal justice. But that's one that I think there's going to be lasting damage, that he has set the stage very perfectly. And had Trump lost the last time, I think we would have seen that, where he would have said this election is not valid, it was illegitimate, there were foreign powers, the deep state, all of those memes that he has used in the past we'll see returning. So were that to happen, I think we'd still see another threat, because Trump, no matter how he goes out, he will not go quietly.
No, and I've said on the show, Trump is how democracies die, and he concerns me a great deal. Let's take a quick break, come back with our friend Raul Reyes right after this.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. You can't. It's like breaking news on top of breaking news. Raul, I'm winded. Raul Reyes.
We interrupt this breaking news with some breaking news.
I don't know what we're going to see over the weekend. I'm glad Trump declared victory instead of going crazy. I don't know how long he will convince himself.
Sunday morning.
Right.
Till Sunday morning.
See, I don't know how long he'll convince himself of that because right now somebody like Rudy Giuliani's like, this was great for you. It's great. And he goes, great. And
Sunday
then
morning.
He'll watch. And Dershowitz said good things too, right?
Right.
So, but the wall will break and somebody, Napolitano or someone else will say on Fox News, this was really bad for the president because it was bad. And then I don't know what really, like, he'll dissolve the DOJ if he could.
Right.
I mean, dissolve the FBI. They were created by statute. But I have to go look it up. Like, I've never thought about, I have to go back to the origin statute, what created DOJ and FBI to make sure Trump cannot dissolve them.
Right. Is that possible? Right. Exactly. Because
I don't think so, but they're part of the executive branch. Perhaps he could be like, we have to downsize part of the government. And Raul, thank you, my friend, for coming in. We had so many topics I emailed and we're going to talk about, and we talked about this for an entire hour. And
happy Friday.
I hope you have a good week. I hope you have some fun. Are you going to relax at all?
Work out. Yeah.
Work out every day.
Yes.
And where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to watch you work
Twitter at Raul A. Reyes or Instagram at Raul A. Reyes 1. You can follow me. I'm lonely.
Follow me. Raul Reyes is lonely. Folks, our next hour, of course, it's Friday, so we do What Just Happened, which Raul has been part of. But tonight we're going to have two great comedians, Carol Montgomery and Carolina Hidalgo. Carolina's been on a bunch of times. Carol's making her debut. Maybe Raul will stick around. If he's that lone, he's got nothing to do. Be right back with more of the Dean Obadala Show right after this.